fascinating question. And if you look at the reason that diamonds were so successful through the 20th century, it was the way that there was a balance between the creation of demand and the creation of supply. And I can look back to the early 1900s when people first started acquiring diamonds from southern Africa. And I can look back to the 1930s when, after the Wall Street crash, Debeers worked with then a little-known designer called Coco Chanel to democratize diamonds and bring them to the middle classes. And then you look at the great advertising campaigns starting in 1947 with "A Diamond is Forever" and how we built on that. And I think what's really important is that we continue to create that demand and then mine towards that demand. So we really need to focus on the creation of demand. What you're seeing at the moment is us working to really do what we call category marketing, the marketing of diamonds as a category, not brands, in a way that I don't think we've really done since 2010. And we really want to work to create that demand. So you ask, what's more important, supply or demand? I think they're both important, but demand needs to come ahead of supply. There's no point producing something that isn't required. So we need to work much harder to create that demand. And this is an appeal I would make to everyone in this room. Don't take demand for granted.
It's an important point because for many years this was a supply-driven market, and we shifted in the last few years into a demand-driven market, which at the end of the day means all of our focus shouldn't be to the question that I started with, what's happening with supply, but rather how do I generate the demand downstream. But let me, before we talk about that a little bit, so considering what you just said, what do you think this means for both governments and companies and how they will work together in the future?
I think it creates a really exciting opportunity. So if you look along the value chain, from upstream, the mining, the discovery of diamonds, to the midstream, the tracing, the cutting, the polishing of diamonds, to the downstream, the retail, the marketing of diamonds. I think there's an opportunity for companies and countries to work together in a way that we've never seen before. So it starts with the upstream, and it starts with governments working with investors like De Beers to ensure that diamonds are produced ethically and sustainably. I think that, as President Boko said, is incredibly important to modern consumers. They've got to be able to see where things come from, and they've got to be able to see that things were produced in the right way. So having that stability, that rule of law, that transparency is absolutely critical in the upstream. And the stories that we can tell together about the way that we've recovered diamonds, about the lives that have been enhanced by the production of diamonds, the livelihoods, the biodiversity, the work we're doing against climate change. They're extraordinary stories. So governments and companies working together there. In the midstream, we have an amazing opportunity. For the first time in the history of humanity, we can trace diamonds from their source to their retail, from mine to finger. 100 years ago, if a remarkable diamond, the Cullinan diamond, was recovered, we could tell that story of the Cullinan mine, and we could bring that Cullinan diamond to markets and say this is where it came from. But we could never do that for the kind of diamonds that would appear on engagement rings and eternity bands in people in this room. We simply didn't have the technology to track it. For the first time in human history, through Tracer and other tools, we can track all diamonds, and we've made the promise in De Beers that we will trace all diamonds of 0.5 carats polished and above, starting in January. We can do that. Now, what that enables us to do, which we could never do before, is tell the story of an individual diamond. A retailer in the United States can say, this diamond came from Botswana, and this is the story of Botswana, and this is the good that that diamond has done in Botswana. These are the livelihoods it's supported. We could never do that before. So countries and companies can work together in a way that we've never been able to before to trace those diamonds. And then I think the third thing is the marketing. And nowadays, It's a very different perception on marketing. I mentioned that advert, "A Diamond is Forever," in 1947. If you look at that advertisement, it almost looks like the man giving the woman the diamond in that advertisement. It almost looks like that diamond was created out of nothing in the United States of America. There's no reference to where it came from. New consumers, Generation Z or millennials, we call them zillennials, you get it? Zillennials care about where their coffee is from. They want to know where their vegetables are from. If they buy some clothing, where was it made? And my goodness, they want to know where their diamonds are from. And increasingly we're going to see that trend. And we need governments and we need companies to speak about that. But we really have an opportunity here, I think, for countries to really talk more about the good that it brings. And that brings an authenticity which a company can't bring. Put simply, if someone from Namibia or Botswana or South Africa stands up and says, "This is what diamonds mean to me," that brings with it an authenticity that is going to be critical to the appeal of diamonds, natural diamonds, that nothing else can match.
I think that deserves a round of applause. I think it deserves a round of applause because what you're saying, it's not transactional. These agreements between companies and countries, it goes beyond that. So on that note, let's talk about the agreement. Where does it stand? Where are we going? Can you give us an update? Whatever you can.
I think the first thing to say is to reflect on the fact that the relationship between Botswana, the Republic of Botswana, and De Beers goes back more than half a century. So it's a relationship built on trust and ethics as well as on legal agreements. I knew you would be asking me about the status of the agreements, and I want to start with sharing a little secret, and that is that a long time ago, when I first came into this role, and I met my negotiating counterpart from the government of Botswana, Madame Emma Pello-Letsi, we agreed that we would keep our secrets a secret, and that we would not seek to negotiate in public. And although the negotiations proceed intensively, in fact, our teams were negotiating just last week in Gaborone, we've always maintained that, and that we won't talk about the details of the agreements in public. And I think that's enabled us to build a real sense of trust. But I would build on what the President said, which is the agreements are nearing completion. And I would go a little bit further than that, because I think this industry has a right to expect this agreement to be in place. With the election and with the new government coming in, we have seen an injection of energy, a real desire to say, let's get this done. Let's get this agreement done, and let's have the world's greatest diamond country and the world's greatest diamond company do this agreement and move on to work shoulder to shoulder with this industry to build beyond, to build the industry, to build the marketing, to build the desire for the diamonds that we produce.
I think it's very important, for years people used to say to me, we need it for stability, and I kind of took it tongue-in-cheek. But because it's been such a long time now, and because we're moving towards sustainability and traceability and the ability to have a discussion with the consumer about what's happening upstream, and they're actually asking for it, the ability to say we have an agreement is important not in the context of having it important, it's important in the context of, so why is it still up in the air? Is there anything wrong? Is there anything I should be worried? And that's where the lack of confidence comes. So concluding this is vital to the industry. Thank you. De Beers is making several adjustments to its market strategy. So I want to ask if possible, does this involve an increase in activities related to polished diamonds?
So the first thing to say is to talk a little bit about what we're doing on marketing in general. So we're very much moving from a focus on brands like De Beers Jewelers, like Forevermark, to a focus on category marketing and the marketing of the story of diamonds.
Located on the Tamalakane River is the tourism capital of Botswana, Maun, a relatively small town compared to others in Botswana.